1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on episode 57. I almost forgot the number. And we've got quite a bit to talk about. Normally, topics can be quite a bit of a struggle for us to think of some weeks. This week didn't really seem to be a shortage. Well, there's stuff that I didn't write down on this list that, could have made it in. We could have talked about updates from what we talked about last week, but that's just depressing.
I feel like on the weeks that we struggle, we're like, oh, God, we're struggling to, we didn't do anything particularly interesting this week. 2 minutes later on the internet, holy crap, what's been going on?
That's true. But yeah, just a, quick overview, which I forgot to do this last week, of what we're going to be talking about. We've got a couple topics for segment one, the first of which, they've announced a release date for Halo Infinite. Blue's got something that he sent me the title to that made me cry inside when I saw it.
Oh, wasn't that for part 3?
No, well, okay, maybe that's part 3 then. We've got a couple interesting articles, let's say, from part 3. Okay. One that should, at least seems to be trying to take itself seriously, and another one that I cannot believe that person is trying to take themselves seriously. And segment 2, doing these in no particular order, segment 1, segment 3, segment 2. Segment 2, we're going to be talking about the movie. We had movie night this week, Shaun of the Dead. We finally got to watch that.
Indeed. Classic.
All right, well, I'll lead off. Yeah, that's right. I forgot.
we switched around right again. That pause was me panicking because we'd spoken beforehand. I was like, Kaiser, you go first.
Yeah. So what I was talking about there, Halo Infinite, they've announced the release date, finally. So I was talking about this a couple weeks ago when I played through the... What did you do?
Didn't you hear that?
No.
There's fireworks going off outside my window.
Oh, really? Okay, it didn't come through Discord, at least. But yeah, so they've announced the release date for Halo Infinite. It is officially going to be coming out December 8th of this year. So that's good news.
Good few months to go.
Yeah, but it's still good news. It's going to happen in 2021. Before it was just a vague, maybe at the end of this year.
I mean, you've already got the game, so I don't know.
Well, no, I played in their one weekend test run, and I had a lot of fun with it, but it was just a quick weekend thing. It wasn't actually the full game, and they should be doing more.
So you don't have access to it now?
No. I actually Steam notified me that it had been taken away. Sad face. Okay. But one thing that is a bit, it's a mixed bag for me. They've announced that on launch there will be no campaign co-op. Which is one of the biggest flaws. One of the biggest flaws in Halo 5 was that it didn't allow couch co-op.
Was 5 Reach? No, 5 wasn't Reach.
No, 5 was the first one to come out for the Xbox One.
Okay.
So there's Halo 1, 2, 3, 3 ODST, Reach, Halo 4, Halo 5.
Okay.
And Master Chief Collection came out around the same time as 5, which is just all the old games bundled together. And that's just the main releases, not like Halo Wars and stuff like that. So, Halo 5, I've had a lot of criticism about it, mainly that it just didn't feel like Halo. It was not a Halo game. But Halo Infinite seems to have addressed a lot of those concerns, so I'm positive after playing it. I'm annoyed. I'm glad that they're at least going to have co-op in it. I'm hoping that there is couch co-op again, because the removal of that, co-op campaign was one of the biggest parts of Halo. Halo 1, I have a lot of very fond memories of playing, co-op on Halo 1, 2, and 3 with friends.
Yeah.
Halo 1 and 2 was in middle school and high school, and then Halo 3 was in college.
How you met a lot of friends as well.
Oh yeah, Jesse and I initially bonded over Halo. I mean
online, but yeah.
Well, yeah, online too. I met Scott through Halo.
Yeah. You may never have met me if you hadn't met Scott.
That's true. Halo has changed our lives in so many ways.
Yeah. Didn't even know it.
But no, so I'm excited that they finally have a release date for it. I'm looking forward to it. They've also announced a special edition controller, which is $200 and looks like Master Chief's armor that I may actually buy. and I'm ashamed to
I was
say
going
that.
to say that the ammo sticks is like his armored nipple plates.
It's not that. It's the same color scheme. But yeah, I'm fingers crossed. I'm hopeful. They've also done like this open world thing with the campaign, which
Ooh,
might be good, might be bad. But
Maybe.
what they're trying to do, and I'm taking the most good faith interpretation of this. What they're trying to do is imitate the success that Halo 1 had with its second level. Halo 1's second level is one of the most... Second level, and I think the third or fourth level too. Just, they really have a strong impact to them. Like, the second level is when you first get down onto the Halo ring, and the world just kind of opens up. You go to one point that's fairly linear, and then you can go in, like, 4 different directions and tackle the mission however you want. And
That sounds a lot like that kind of Just Cause-esque style.
hopefully it's not on that scale, but I think because it was still structured, but it gave you the illusion that you were kind of free to do it how you wanted. Because like once you picked a direction, that was all very structured, and there was some several different options, but it all felt very organic. And I think they're trying to scale that up to the entire campaign, or at least I hope that's what they're doing.
I'm just imagining you get on, you're like a little kid at Christmas, you're signing on, and then it's just like, it's the map Warlock times 10 times. It's just a massive version of Warlock.
I fucking hate that map. I've
You
ranted
can't
about
see
this.
the scathing poison coming from Kaiser's eyes, but
Fucking hate
I
that.
assure you it's there.
I have a burning hatred for most maps that MLG players like in general, in most shooting games. Like I like the like creative, like asymmetric, cool, like maps with a lot of different nuance and chaos to them.
Yeah, the oversimplified look, while it's like simplistic can work on maps. We've discussed this many times before. But this level where it's just like sheet metal everywhere just fucking sucks.
It's one of the reasons that I pretty heavily disliked Halo 5's multiplayer. They were really pushing to get 60 FPS on the console version, and as a result, every single object in that game looked like it was made by Mattel. It was like this flat, drab, monocolor plastic. It looked gross.
Yeah. That's when developers stopped making for a player who wants to have fun, and they start making for a player who wants to be competitive.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the way that the industry as a whole has gone a lot over the last few years.
Yeah. And it's annoying. But overall hopeful. I'll end it with that. Overall hopeful. All right, and I think you had something is it Final Fantasy again, I believe?
Okay, yes, sure. So, I was peeved the other night. Kaiser was actually playing a game called Splitgate with his friends, and I knew he was playing with friends, and I was like, I'm not going to interrupt him. And then something happened, and I just sent him a very angry message in caps locks. So, in Final Fantasy, there is like 3 main campaigns which are available to anyone for free. And I completed the first main campaign. It was alright, it was decent. In fact, to be honest, all 3 of the main campaigns not brilliant. It's not why I like the game. Anyway, at the end of the second one, like the last kind of event that happens is you're at like a party celebration, everyone's having fun. You're sat with the Sultana, who is like the queen of a city, and there's a bunch of other leaders from other cities at the party. You're with the queen in like her bedchambers. She's a Lalafell, before you give me that bollocks, so no, don't,
No.
And you're talking to her, and you're like, she's like, okay, so my plan is, there's a lot of strife in my kingdom. The way that theoretically it'll all work out, I'm going to abdicate, right?
Okay.
So, to abdicate means to give up your royal position. I'm not saying this for your sake, I'm saying this for
I was going to say, pretty
Yeah.
sure
So, to give up the throne and just, like, make it a democracy or something. I don't know. And so she says that, and then she picks up a goblet of wine, drinks from it, and fucking dies. Right?
A plot
Completely
twist.
unexpected. No one saw this coming. Okay, I saw this coming because I accidentally saw a spoiler on YouTube. But she's fucking dead, alright? Some guards come in, they're like, she's fucking dead. You're to blame. They go out, like, these guards are led by an evil lord or something. Whatever. The lord and these guards go to the party, they're like, you're all,
Culpable.
accomplice is, what's the word, to, like, your group of people. One dude who was like the guardian for the queen is like so pissed, and he knows that someone's been fucking around, so he attacks one of the guards who's like obviously like a higher position. He gets his fucking arm cut off, and this is a cool dude, by the way. The guy I'm talking about, a guy called Rauban. He's a very cool character. Gets his arm sliced off, and he's like blacks out on the floor. No, he doesn't black out. He's really pissed. He just turns into a fucking demon. He gets arrested. Everyone else barely gets away. They're running down the corridors, like, then two of them stay behind to stop to slow them down. Then another two, and then it's just you. And you get out of the city, and you're like, oh my god, everyone is dead. Everyone dies, right? Like, I'm the only one who got out alive. You get in a cart with the one person who didn't die, who I actually fucking hate. I really hate the guy that came with. And you go off, and you can't go back to the city. Like, you have to go to a far-off city where they'll accept you, because right now your head's on the wanted list.
Yeah.
Later on, you find out that Rauban is still in prison, hasn't been executed. You go in, you fucking kill all his captives. You save Rauban. And, I don't know, somehow, because I did skip some of the story, like, the city just returns to normal. Oh, like, while the party was happening, Rauban fucking cut the Lord's head off, by the way. Just by the by. Like, it was a fucking dramatic scene, right? All because the Sultana died. And then there's, like, a whole main storyline where you go off this other land, 6 different, like, areas. Do a bunch of quests in all of them. You're dotting around. You kill like a epic final boss, and it's like the classic fairy tale ending. There's like an award ceremony. People are coming together. It's happy. And this little Lalafell bitch comes up onto the stage, and I'm like, what?
Oh, is that the queen or the sulfur? Whatever.
You're dead. How are you... What? How is she here? Is this a dream sequence? Is this, like, some alternate fucking reality? We haven't seen her since she died. Died being the operative word. And she's just standing there, healthy as all fuck. She doesn't even do anything interesting. She just stands there, and she's like, now kiss the bride. It's not even that, it's not a wedding. But she's just there.
So they don't even explain how she came back to life, or...
Maybe they did and I skipped through it in, like, a cutscene. But, like, there weren't any long cutscenes between them, so I don't... What did I miss? And even then, she was confirmed dead by multiple people.
You know what happened? She set your ass up.
No, she didn't.
Ah, she totally did. The guards were on her payroll.
And, like, she, for a start, she's a Lalafell. Alright, just... Let's think about it for a second there. Smaller person body.
Yeah.
You need less poison generally.
Generally, yeah.
Alright, now consider... She's... the fucking queen. Like, if I was the assassin, that would be like 90% death, 10% mixer. Right?
Yeah.
Cause like, especially because she drank it, and then it was like, dead.
It happened instantly.
Bam.
They got potassium cyanide in Final Fantasy Land.
Like, it's bad enough that they let her fucking man servant, awesome dude, like live for all that time until we rescued him.
mean,
And all the other... Sorry.
no, to be fair, I mean, you can take down like a normal-sized human being with just like a very, very tiny amount of potassium cyanide.
And all the
you
other
need even less than that.
Scions, all the people in your group, the Scions of the Seventh Dawn, who have supposedly saved the world at this point twice, murdered for a queen that isn't dead.
Oh, they
Right?
actually die. Okay.
Yeah. But wait! One
Oh,
of them isn't dead!
There's no end to the bullshit.
Oh! Guess which one didn't die? That's right, it's the fucking white-haired cat lady who everyone has a boner for. That's the one that they bring back. It's like...
And you wonder why
Why?
I've been skipping all of the cutscenes. like,
everybody, that thing with the party, that was a fucking epic scene. That was...
yeah.
I've told you at the time when I watched this, that was over an hour long, that cutscene.
Jesus.
And I was so fucking gripped. Like, that's a short film.
Yeah.
And I fucking watched it through and I was like, damn, shit's gotten real. Except it hasn't, because it's all fucking lies.
That is honestly some of the worst. You've actually reminded me of an anime that I watched when I was in I don't know if I was in high school or middle school, but I was a lot younger.
Right.
But it's relevant to this because this is one of the worst things is when there's a great setup to a story. Like the build up is there, the tension is there. It's like, oh shit, something's gonna happen, and then they resolve it with just a little. It's over. I hate that. So there was this anime I watched with one of my friends in high school called Spiral, I think it was called, and we watched it because at that point, like, we were also really into the anime Detective Conan or Case Closed, as it's known in Japan. Excellent show. It's still running. It's got like 1,000 episodes, and it's a murder mystery thing. It's like a Sherlock Holmesy. There's a detective. Some mystery happens, and then he uses clues to figure out, oh, it's, he murdered this person by doing X, Y, and Z. This show seemed very similar, where they've got like, there's but it's different. There's like this mysterious group of people who are essentially setting up these like traps, these deadly traps that essentially are like terrorist events. Like they're like, oh, this hospital is going to blow up unless you figure out X, Y, and Z, and so on and so forth. And it was really good. But this group was set up as like this, like it was clear something had been done to them. They had some sort of a mutation or something, or they were marked, or it was set up that there was some mysterious thing about them that made them like special and clever, and it's why they were taking vengeance on the world or something like that.
Yeah.
Get to the last episode, it's resolved in like a 5-minute white background like flashback with just a voiceover, and the explanation is complete nonsense.
A flashback. Flashbacks.
Not even a flashback. Sorry, it's like it fades to white, and then a voiceover tells you a bullshit reason. It's basically like, we couldn't figure out why they were special either.
We run out of the budget, so here's what happens.
That is exactly how it ended. And to this day, I'm so pissed because we were so into the show that I was buying the DVDs.
Ooh.
And this was back when I had like no fucking money because I was like 12. I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
And so I was basically just I was spending allowance on that. And I still have the whole box. Well, not the whole box, but I have all the DVDs for that season. I want to go. I've almost like burned it out of my mind. The only thing that sticks in my head is that ending and how fucking shit it was compared to the awesome setup they'd had throughout the series. So what you're talking about there, absolutely true. And it's something that you see with a lot of, like, it ruins a lot of things when you have a bad ending to a good concept.
Yeah, and okay, so everyone does go on about Final Fantasy's story is amazing if you just give it a chance.
Yeah.
I disagree. And the reason behind it is that I find it quite slow to progress, right? Like, it's not inherently bad. It just takes a long time to get to the points. and a lot of the good points are punctuated by a lot of long, slow points. Like I said, that mission where I had to go and fetch a bunch of soldiers' uniforms for them.
Yeah.
I'm like 50 hours into the game. Fetch your own fucking uniforms, you lazy shits.
It's like I'm practically the hero of the world right now.
Yeah, exactly. And you're telling me to go out and find a sandwich recipe? Like, what the hell?
Oh my god.
And yeah, like, so, and all power to the people that enjoy that story. But I prefer the gameplay far more than any of the.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying the gameplay more than any. I've skipped every cutscene, so in my mind, the storyline is about an extremely ugly man who carries a spear trying to become the best gambler in all of whatever the fuck world this is called.
First of all, you can't gamble in this game, and second of all, oh wait, yeah, okay,
yeah, I'm playing Triple Triad. Yeah. Right, that's.
I suppose it is technically gambling because you have to pay in. And you're literally calling your own character the ugliest man.
Have you seen my character's face?
He looks like Jesus. He's not ugly.
No. Look at his facial feature. He's got the Jesus hair, but if you look at his face, he looks like he took beauty tips from a boulder. Like the dude is fucking ugly as hell, and I made him that way on purpose.
I should have called him Bob the Boulder.
No, instead I called him Dirk Clint Thrust.
Yeah, I mean, it's an appropriate name.
Yeah, considering he's a lancer.
Yeah.
So, I kind of want to go on a little. Unless you have something else you want to move on to, I kind of want to. No. I thought of another example of great setup, shit ending.
Go on.
So, I may pick this for movie night at some point if I haven't already. Have I shown you guys?
Expense. Sorry.
They haven't had the ending yet.
It was the ending for me because I'm not reading any further into it.
Oh, you didn't like the fact that they took out yeah.
It just anyway. Sorry, no, you'll play it. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, the what I'm thinking of is oh god, I lost it. Oh yeah, so I may pick this for movie night at some point. The movie's called Law Abiding Citizen. I don't think we've watched that yet, right?
Don't think so. I never heard of
it. Great movie. You know, great story, great acting. Some bits are a little contrived, but it's still really good. The ending is just like, basically the way the movie ends is I could see them like in the writer's room there. It's like, oh, how can we tie all this together? How can we have a good ending? It's like, well, the good guy wins. And that's it. Like, it literally is that abrupt. They have this movie, and so basically the premise, this guy, who was like an engineer working for like a defense contractor or something like that, and whatever. He, well-off guy, he's got a wife and a daughter. These people break into his house, they knock him out, do untoward things to his wife and kill both her and the daughter. And they get obviously caught, taken to court, and the district attorney cuts a plea deal so that the guy that actually did the killing, he gets to walk after like 10 years because he testified against the other guy. And the other guy that basically did nothing but was there helping him, that guy gets a death penalty.
Right.
And so this guy is furious because the court system...
Yeah, the murder's again.
Yeah, exactly. The guy that did all of this, and just because the DA was like, oh, if we go to court, we risk them getting off instead of not punishing them at all.
Yeah, you want the win.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically for the guy who this happened to, it was a moral issue. It was like, this guy did these fucked up things. We gotta at least try to have justice done and go after the guy that really did it. But for the DA, it was just like, oh, it's another day in the office. We want to get a win because that makes me look better and I get a pay rise and all that fun stuff. And so basically what happens is that all goes through, and this guy just sets himself on revenge. Like, he starts up for I think something like 5 to 10 years, he starts plotting and thinking up like his revenge, and exacts it in brutal fashion. Like, he takes out the guy that got out in a very brutal way, but then he's not done. Then he goes after, like, the DA and the judge that agreed to it and the lawyer that defended the guy, and, like, starts going through all of this stuff. But he does it with a purpose. Like, he doesn't go after the lawyer, the DA that decided to do this. He's trying to show him that this, the way that he's handling justice is immoral, right? And again, you don't condone anything that guy did in the movie, because he did some fairly brutal things, but you can sympathize when you see, essentially,
Yeah, you understand his motive for doing
exactly. You put yourself in that situation. Your family gets murdered, and no one's going to do anything about it.
It reminds me a lot of the oh god, I forgot his name now. The superhero / villain with the skull on his chest.
Oh, the Punisher.
Punisher. Have you seen that?
I think
series?
I don't think I've seen the series. I think I've seen one of the movies, or at least part of it. But so, just to wrap it back to the bad endings.
Yes. And
I've actually had a discussion with my dad about this. He didn't think the ending was that bad. I thought the ending was awful. Essentially, the guy's plan is brilliant. He's executing it perfectly up until a point. It gets to the very end when he's getting to, like, the finale of his plan, and a fucking Deus Ex Machina comes out of nowhere, and the DA gets an email from somebody who has never been on screen, who tells him, just sends him,
I think
this
you
is
told me about this before. Yeah.
He sends him, like, basically a document that, like, this is his plan.txt, and he suddenly just knows everything. And not only that, the guy, like, blows his cover on purpose for some, well, not on purpose, but he makes one of the most idiotic decisions that you could make.
This is sounding very reminiscent of the worst ending in any story that we both agree on, and I know that we both do.
Oh?
This sounds a lot like Death Note.
Oh, yeah. Hate that fucking... It is like
universally the worst ending to a...
Yeah. So, the real ending, not where I consider the series. The series ends when L dies. That's my line on it. But the actual ending, you're right. It's almost exactly the same thing. Because at the very end, the main character, who's been, like... He's maybe you want to call him an anti-hero, a villain, an antagonist, whatever you classify him as. He has been brilliant and executed his plan flawlessly up until a point, and then he just takes crazy pills at the end and decides to blow it all up. And it's the same thing in this movie. So yeah. And it's worse because the rest of the movie is so good.
Yeah, well, the only reason I wouldn't want it to end with L is because there's, like, all the points after that, 80% of it is fucking gold. Like, the ending is fucking the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
But up to that point, even from after L died, it is so good, and that's what makes the ending so goddamn bad.
Yeah. The reason I say it should probably end with L is I like, because that would have been a good ending. Yes, there was more good content after that, but then you get a shit ending after that good content. Like, with it ending with their, like, it cuts in that brilliant moment where he's looking up at him, and boom, end of the series. That would have been such an epic ending.
There are two moments that particularly stick out in my mind about that series. One is obviously that point, that was a pinnacle of the series. The other was when he was in the helicopter, and he had just been passed back the Death Note, and he had his memories wiped for so long.
Yeah.
And he, like, I think it's the moment he touches it or something, and all his memories flood back, and you're like, it's fucking on, boys. It's fucking on.
And then...
It's so dramatic. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, well, that's the point where, like, he's his own, like, more naive, more sincere self did all the work of building trust with all these people, and then he gets the memories back, and he still has that trust, but now he's back to being,
It's the fucking perfect plan, like, plays out.
Yeah.
It's so good. Shit. Anyway, we've talked about Death Note many times.
Have we really? I know we talked about it once before. I didn't know.
Well, We always talk about it whenever endings come up.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's it.
We haven't actually talked about the actual content of Death Note, hardly at all.
You know what might be a decent topic for a segment sometime is the philosophy behind Death Note, because the
epics and things.
Well, I'm thinking about we're coming up on the end of the segment, but just as something that Lou and I talked about earlier in the week was moments of like self-reflection where you think like, if I was in this situation, would I be a good person? Am I a good person? Am I doing like it's something that it's worth a conversation, I think, worth having with yourself every now and again, just like really taking a moment of self-reflection. And I think that Death Note has a lot of that. That's one of the core questions to it, because the guy seems to be a perfectly fine, upstanding person, but the moment he gets that level of power, he turns into like just a brutal tyrant that's correcting the world.
He becomes a dictator.
Yeah, but a silent one. He's not.
Yeah,
and it's a complex thing because he's not out there looking for. He's not really looking for praise. He's not looking for recognition. He's just silently correcting the world the way he thinks it should be, in a brutal fashion.
And they make a very distinct line between Light Yagami and Kira, as is the name of his
alter
side.
ego. Yeah.
And it's particularly obvious, like what I just said, where he gets his memories wiped, because he goes back to being that. I was going not necessarily a super sweet innocent boy, but like a very down to earth, fresh out of school,
a morally upstanding citizen.
Exactly. And then the moment it's back in his hand, everything floods back to him, and he has that power lost again.
Yeah.
But you could argue he made a lot of people happy with the things that he did.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Would you? Yeah.
It's a real religious argument, I would say, because it very strongly plays on the idea of playing God.
It does, but it also plays on the like the old question of like, would you rather like be free and live in a world where there is danger, or be completely safe but be heavily restricted? So he's essentially controlling people, because people aren't being good people because the world is. So I quickly, for those who don't know, brief recap. Death Note is an anime where this kid gets a death note, which is a book that if he writes someone's name in it, they'll die. And if he writes a cause of death, they'll die of that cause of death at the time he specifies. If he doesn't specify anything, they die of a heart attack in a certain amount of time.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of rules.
Yeah, and he decides he's going to start wiping out criminals en masse with heart attacks, so people realize that somebody's coming after these people. Anyway, what I was going to say is, like, it comes down to the idea that, like, those people, like, he builds this ideal world in the end for a while, where crime is almost eliminated, but people aren't being good people because there's any... like they have any desire to be necessarily. They're being good people because somebody's holding a gun to their head.
Yeah, the world becomes a police state.
Yeah.
But it's a police state that people can't... It doesn't matter how much they rebel and say they don't want it. It's not something they can do anything about, particularly.
Unless they actually find Kira, the person. Yeah.
And it does become a lot like kind of 1930s Germany / Russia during those times.
Yeah.
Where, like, you're afraid of your neighbor, you're afraid of your kids, because if they post something online saying you did something terrible,
then Kira's gonna find your name killed. And yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like the have you ever read the book 1984?
I think you told me about it. I don't know. There's a lot of books that are just named after dates.
Yeah. So it's another dystopian future. It's actually set in England by George Orwell.
Is that where, like, if the Germans won?
No. It's actually if socialism took over the West, essentially. And so you end up with 3 nations perpetually at war. Eurasia, which is essentially the Soviet Union and all of Europe. Oceania, which is the U.S., South America, and the U.K., and then East Asia, which is China, India, and most of the South Pacific. And
China?
God damn it! And it's set in the UK, which is referred to as Airstrip 1 in the book.
Right.
And the reason I bring it up is, like in most socialist states, like you were saying, it's like neighbors reporting on each other, family reporting on each other in service of the state. So they actually have a subplot in it where they're talking about one of the main character's neighbors, his kids. They're part of a youth organization called the Spies, where they're essentially trained by the state that they need to be ever vigilant. And at the end, the guy's daughter turns in him, like his neighbor. His neighbor's daughter turns in her father. And even in the jail cell, her father is like, "Oh, I'm so proud of her. It's good that she caught me before I did anything against the state," and stuff like that. Because even he's like so far gone in the indoctrination. But yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. To clarify, like, why we think the ending is so bad, by the way, how easily it could have been won is that, like, any time over, like, I think, like, there's a year at the end where they basically do nothing. Like, the task force out to get Kira does nothing.
Yeah.
Any time doing that, he could have planted a bomb in the office. He could have just got a mob of people under his command to fucking kill them all.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many ways.
There are so many ways, and I think what is really infuriating about it, and this will kind of be the last point, is that he has acted brilliantly. He's shown himself to be just a very sharp and precise tactician for the entire rest of the story, and then
better than the best detective on the planet.
Boom. Yeah, he beats that guy. And yet... Oh, God, yeah. It's just a very annoying ending, but don't want to belabor that. I'm sure we could, if we thought about it, we could pull up other stories that have great beginnings and crap endings, but we've already gone over on time a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yes, so moving on to Shaun of the Dead for segment 2, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we'll go to next. A little bit more lighthearted. It's a comedy. A horror comedy, which is a weird combo. But yeah, this is going to be the end of segment 1 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you will hear us again momentarily for segment 2. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on segment 2, our media segment, and we had movie night. We watched Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead. At
some point, we make that tangerine joke so often now that I kind of just want to watch that. Because Dark Knight's a good movie. That'd be a good movie to watch sometime.
Whoa, you totally need to explain that for the viewers because they didn't hear it.
So there is a in the Dark Knight, the Batman movie, with Christian Bale. There's a moment in it where Alfred is telling Bruce Wayne about trying to explain the Joker's thinking to him. Is like he's talking about because the Batman's still trying to find like a logical reason why the Joker would do what he did, and the guy's like, when I was serving in Burma, that's the wrong accent, but when he was serving,
bad.
Really, okay, I'm judging myself a little too harshly then. He said when he was serving in Burma, they came across a bandit who had been like robbing their caravans and taking shipments of jewels, right? And they kept looking around, and they eventually found that. Why?
It's because when you said jewels, I was like, they took the jewels. They were the size of a tangerine.
Okay, I'm getting it.
I can't help it. Sorry.
So he talks about they searched and tried to find the guy, and when they eventually realized they were looking for him selling these jewels, and he's like, and I found a child playing with a ruby the size of a tangerine. And
I found the bandit. He was very sneaky because he was the size of a tangerine.
So somebody made like a joke video on YouTube where they cut up the speech. So every single line is like, when I was in Burma serving with the tangerines. It's like, we found a bandit the size of a tangerine.
God, it's not funny, but
It
it's
isn't,
so funny.
but it's become an inside joke. So when I was doing the intro to this segment, Blue just goes tangerine into the mic.
I was just looking at your face, mate.
I do have an orange light on right now. Yeah. This is why I want to move to somewhere with more natural light.
From now on, that's not the orange light, that's the tangerine
The tangerine light. It is actually kind of a tangerine color. Anyway, the actual movie we watched this week.
Weird fucking intro to this segment.
I don't know. Some of my favorite ones of these podcasts are the ones where we go off talking about random bullshit, so I'm fine with it. So we watched Shaun of the Dead this week, and you're probably going to have to pop in and correct me a few times because you've seen the movie a lot more than I have. I do remember most of the plot.
I still cover my face at some points of it.
There are some cringe bits. So
well, not cringe, just gore.
Oh, the gore? Yeah, that didn't really bother me.
Yeah.
So we actually talked about... We recorded more Amnesia yesterday, and for whatever reason, horror video games freak me out. Like, I can't... Like, especially the really atmospheric, tension-building ones. Gore and horror stuff in movies and anime and stuff like that, okay. Doesn't bother me. But I think it's because when you're playing a game, you put yourself into being that person.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Shaun of the Dead, actually, apparently, it's same two guys that did the other one that we watched.
Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz. I was going to say Going Postal. That's not right. That's right, they were police officers, not postal workers. So, it was...
Well, he was in it, wasn't he?
No, different guy.
No. Yeah.
So it was interesting for me watching them in reverse order because Hot Fuzz obviously referenced a lot of things that happened in Shaun of the Dead. But when I watched Shaun of the Dead, it was like Shaun of the Dead was referencing a lot of things that happened in Hot Fuzz. So I was getting them in reverse.
I can't remember which one came out first. There's one in the trilogy that you still haven't seen, and I know you said you're eager to watch it. It's one about so obviously there was one that was like a cult of old villagers, OAPs.
Yeah.
There's one which was like the world turns to zombies, and the third one is everyone in this like county area is slowly being replaced by alien robots. Okay. And the crew is on like a pub crawl. And as they go through the night, they suddenly realise things are not quite as they seem.
You've kind of, yeah. So, a bit of background on this. Shaun of the Dead is a parody of the movie Dawn of the Dead. Again, about a zombie apocalypse. I've never seen either of those movies until just recently, but I have seen a parody of the parody called Juan of the Dead, which takes place in Cuba.
Yeah. I've not seen Dawn of the Dead either, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's a very old film, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty old at this point. To be fair, I don't know when it came out. I have no idea.
Yeah.
You're welcome to look it up, but
so go on, you talk.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, all right, so getting into the plot, and get me if I'm wrong on any of these points.
2004.
Oh, so it's not that old. Yeah,
It's pretty old now. 17 years.
And I would have been 13, 14 when that came out. No, 16.
No.
I would have been 16.
No. Wait, well, yeah, did I say 2004?
You said 2004. I was born in 1988.
Right, yeah. I always forget how old you are. I was like, that can't be right. I was way younger than you. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Anyway, so, getting into the actual movie plot, it starts off in like this pub scene, which actually I found really funny. Like the main
the Winchester.
Yeah, the Winchester. Named after the rifle. And the main character's sitting there, he's got a beer in front of him, and he's just got kind of like this dull, like tired look on his face, like the 9-to-5 guy who's just tired, been on his feet all day, and he's out at a pub having a drink. That's the look on that guy's face. And he's having a heart-to-heart with his girlfriend. And she's talking about how, like, trying to break it to him easy that can we not just go to the pub, every time we want to go out? And can we not be with your best friend here who's been with you forever, who's this big fat
she
dude
wants
over
to
here?
Move out.
Yeah,
And in with her.
exactly. They want to, let's get a place together. And she's trying to like pull him away from his bro life.
Unacceptable.
Yeah. And so his friends over there are just loudly and annoyingly playing on the arcade machine. But they do this scene in a really funny way where they're talking about him as if he's not there, and then the camera cuts and he's right next to him.
Yeah.
And then he talks about some of her friends, and the camera cuts, and they're right there as well.
Yeah.
And they keep this gag going for a while, and I thought it was
With
just...
Dylan Moran. Oh.
So,
Do you remember Dylan Moran?
Yeah, well, he was in that movie, Runaway Bride. No, Decoy Bride.
He was, but I always remember him from Black Books.
Oh, right, he was the
shopkeeper.
The shop owner. Yeah, I remember watching. Yeah, we watched. God, that was like 2 years ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Anyway, so Black Books, also a very good series.
3 series.
Hmm?
Yeah, 3 series.
I always forget that you guys do that in the UK. So, in the US, when a TV show has multiple airings, like multiple years, we call it seasons. But in the UK, you call it series. It's always confusing, because when we say, in the US, when you say a series, you mean the entire collected work.
Right.
You don't just mean like one segment of it. So an entire series would have several seasons.
I'd like to say, we are almost 10 minutes into the recording now, and we've not got past the first scene yet.
It's a good first scene. All right. I'll try to move a little faster. So that scene happens. He kind of agrees that okay, maybe we should do this and get better, and ends up going back to. They end up going back home, and
him and his bro, that is.
Yeah. They go to bed, wakes up, that guy's like up the next day, and he's literally just sitting there drinking beer, playing video games, and before work
like Halo, wasn't he?
I know he's playing on a PlayStation, couldn't have been Halo.
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah, I can't remember.
I got a keen eye for them video game controllers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's sitting there playing video games, and this guy decides, I'm going to sit down with him and play some video games. And he's like, okay, but come on, can you clean up a little bit? Because, this is getting a little obnoxious. And he's like, okay, I'll clean up and whatever, after somewhat of a conversation. He gets dressed, goes off to work, stopping at like the corner shop first, gives some money to a homeless dude or whatever. Goes to work, has his work day, and then realizes, oh shit, there's a whole bunch of stuff I have to do. He forgot to set reservations to this restaurant that he was supposed to be taking his girlfriend out to. What?
Buys a cornetto in the corn shop. Very important.
What is a cornetto, by the way?
You don't have cornettos over there.
No, we don't.
It's like the quintessential classic ice cream of England. It's just got some fucking history to it that it's just so British. Anyway, the 3 films are called the Cornetto trilogy because I think they all have the same thing, and I think they were all like paid for partially
by Cornetto.
Cornetto,
yeah, that makes sense. They are very British films.
They are. They're very British actors.
God. Anyway, so he rushes back home to try and immediately set the reservation. It doesn't work out because, they're full up on tables. He can't work anything out. And so he tells his girlfriend, and she's furious with him. He also realizes, oh shit, I had to get flowers for his mother for Mother's Day because his father came into the shop where he worked at and chastised him for being a shitty son.
Another very famous actor.
Yeah. That guy's been in a lot of things, too. But also, I think I should clarify stepfather.
Yeah.
Because throughout the entire film, they're like, oh, your dad was here. He's like, he's not my father. Or something like that.
You're not my real Dad.
You're not my father, Dad.
Yeah.
So he sets a reservation for the restaurant, or tries to, can't do it, rushes over to his girlfriend's place because she's furious with him. He gets into the apartment, and she is livid and breaks up with him.
Yeah.
After, there's a lot of back and forth that really is kind of meaningless.
Yeah, it ends with... So, food at the Winchester.
Yeah.
And that's when he's like, that's the last straw.
Yeah, and that just kind of, like, breaks it up that he just can't think of anywhere else to go except for the pub where they've been going forever.
Years. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he, all dejected, goes back home. Him and his bro, they go out, they get drunk, they close down the Winchester, like, and just end up, like, drinking beer and shots until all hours of the morning, go back home, and are playing,
We
like...
get shut in. Do you have shut-ins over there?
No. Wait, what are shut-in? Like, when they just lock up the pub and it's just those...
Yeah, you're allowed to stay in the pub, but you're, like, locked in. I've never been in it. Well, actually, no, I tell you, I have been in any shut-in.
I mean, you can, like, rent out places for, like, an entire night or something like that for, like, parties and stuff, but...
Yeah, you have to really trust the people you're shutting in with all the alcohol, really.
Okay, so it's something that's just, oh, for regulars, you guys can stay in here and...
Yeah.
Okay. They might have those in some places in the U.S., but probably not.
It's very rare.
They wouldn't have them around here.
Less likely these days, more like in the old days where people didn't really give a shit if you were acting like a drunk asshole. These days I feel like it's a lot more strict on cracking down on people
I mean,
being drunk and disorderly.
Ever since Prohibition, the U.S. has been like that. Ever since Prohibition, the U.S. has had a really weird relationship with alcohol. But, alright, so moving on. They get blasted, and they go back to their place, and it's like 4 in the morning, and they're playing some crazy, like, hip-hop or something like that, and their roommate, who I didn't know was a different person than Dylan Moran. I thought they were the same guy.
Really?
They look the same
Dylan
to me.
Moran's all like this, you know, and he's a little bit Irish.
Yeah.
That guy is like, I'm gonna fucking fuck you in a minute.
Well, they were separated by enough scenes, and they looked similar enough that I thought they were the same person for, like, half the movie. Like, it was only until later, like, when one of them dies and the other one's still alive, I was like, didn't he just die?
They're pulling a Final Fantasy on me again.
So their third roommate, you know, yells at them and goes like, "Oh, go to sleep and deal with this shit." And he talks about how, like, a hobo bit him on the way home. Oh yeah, they see their first zombie on their way home from the pub, but they just think it's like somebody who's wicked drunk or something like that, kind of wandering off. And so the next day they wake up, you know, hungover and whatnot, and
it always reminds me of that scene in Zombieland where he lets the girl into his apartment.
Oh yeah, and he has to...
I fucking hate that scene.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what's coming.
It's deeply unpleasant. Yeah. Anyway, Zombieland, also a very good movie.
Also very good, yeah. And also very funny.
Yeah, I really enjoy watching that one. Anyway, so what am I trying to say?
They wake up the next morning.
They wake up the next morning.
Back.
Yeah, and they go into the back, and they think it's just like a drunk chick out in the backyard who wandered in because it's a zombie, and they're shambling like, ugh. And then she jumps on the main character and starts trying to bite him and stuff like that, and his friend just thinks it's fucking hilarious, and he goes to get a camera, and he's taking a picture of it and everything. And they eventually get the lady off of him and knock her over, and she falls and gets impaled on, like, a pole.
Yeah.
And
that was in a very sharp pole.
Right? The gore in this movie, like, seemed very easy to happen. Like, it's not that easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's meant to. It's a comedy, but...
Yeah. So she, but then, not dead, climbs up off the pole and then comes shambling back at them, and they end up just, like, beating the crap out of her with, like, I think a cricket bat and a shovel?
Yeah,
or something like that.
I don't know if that happens there. I think they just retreat into a house.
Yeah, and then that's when they watch the news, and the news is talking about how, like, oh, some infection has happened. You must, you know, destroy the head to...
Before they get back to the house, the fat dude appears in the backyard. Because then Shaun is like, are they still there? And the dude's like, yeah, they're still there.
Oh my god. Yeah, so they retreat back in the house, they watch the news, and that's when they finally notice that there's this big plague going on, and, like, the zombie apocalypse. And it's funny because it's been going on for a while, But
Yep.
there are several scenes where they're just completely oblivious to it. Like, they repeat the scene where he walks to the corner shop to buy something, and as he's walking down the street, there's all the signs of, like, people being zombies, chaos, cars crashed. He just doesn't notice because he's fucking hungover and just is going through the same routine.
Yeah, like the beggar from the day before is like a zombie and trying to eat him. He's like, no, I haven't got any change, Dad. Like, I can't even afford a beer.
Yeah, and then he goes off to... Oh, God. And yeah, so he goes to the corner store, comes back, the zombies appear, and then they realize his friend was saying he got bit by a homeless person the other day, and they're connecting it to what they're saying on the TV, that the bite spreads the infection, and they're like... He goes up to take a piss in the upstairs bathroom, and sure enough, that guy's a zombie.
Yeah.
And at this point, he realizes, I've got to go save my ex-girlfriend. For whatever reason.
Because love.
I guess.
Yeah.
And so he goes off and, climbs up into the apartment where they're all holed up. And, there's zombies milling around but not really doing anything. And the girlfriend and her two roommates are there. And, by the way, the two roommates are a couple.
I can't remember the actual dude's name, so I'm just going to call him Roger. The girlfriend's like, and you called Roger a twat?
Yeah.
Roger is a twat.
He's right there. There's a lot of very funny dialogue moments.
Yeah.
In this, like a lot of really funny character interaction. So, anyway, he eventually convinces them that they have to leave the house and try to find like a plan to get somewhere. Oh, before he leaves for their place, he makes a plan with his bro there, and they go through a couple iterations of what to do. They gotta hole up somewhere and find somewhere to like let it all blow over. And
it all ends with, and have a beer.
Yeah, and they decide on the pub.
Wait till it all blows over, that was the phrase.
Yeah, wait till it all blows over, and it all ends with him holding up a beer and just like a smile on his face. Like,
smiling, yeah.
Which no one could see that because...
Yeah, I was going
to say. Anyway, so he eventually does convince him to leave. They escape, and they pick up, his bro, and then they go to pick up his mother. Or did they pick up his mother? No, they pick up his mother second. And
no, they pick her up first.
You're
right.
They
pick up the car.
Nope, you're right. I got him out of order. They pick up his mother first and his stepdad, who the stepdad is sick, but they think he's sick with the zombie plague. He just has like a really, really bad cold.
No, I think he actually was.
Eventually, that's later.
No, but I think he actually was.
No.
From the start.
Nope.
Okay. So I just think it didn't act that fast.
No, they play it. Yeah, they play it as a joke that he, because he gets bitten in their driveway.
Yeah, I know, but I think he had already been bitten. I think he was already going to die, but I think that sped up because he was dying faster.
Maybe, but I don't think so. I think
it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah, like because they play it for laughs that they think he's a zombie and he's like really eager to kill his stepdad, and then but then he's not actually infected. He's actually fine. Just got like a bit of a head cold. And then they take him out, and they notice that the father has a Jag, and so the best friend is like, okay, I'll just wait in the car and watch the car. And by the time they get out, and he's like, where's the car? He's like, oh, I binned it. And he points back, and the car's ran into a pole like down the street. And it's like, how did you do that? You were parked. And so I guess we just have to take the Jag.
Yeah.
And so they end up getting that car, and that's when they went to the girlfriend's house and pick her up, and so everyone's in the car. And the stepdad does get bit by a zombie in the driveway, and he has a heart-to-heart moment with the son. They're like, oh, I was hard on you because I was trying to make you a better man and all that cliche stuff, and then he dies and turns into a zombie. And they all have to jump out of the car because he's now a zombie in the car. And now they're all surrounded by zombies because they had to stop the car, and they're trying to figure out how to get out of this situation. And I think they end up leaving the car.
Yeah, right? They go through people's back gardens.
And this is the Hot Fuzz bit where like there's a series of fences, and he's like, "Oh, just take a shortcut," and he goes to leap over the fences like he does in Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
Whereas Hot Fuzz, he does it very competently and just leaps over every fence. In this one, he goes to the first fence, goes to vault it, and the fence just falls over. And
yeah,
he just,
like his assistant in Hot Fuzz.
Yeah. So a little reference there. Yeah, and then sorry, I'm trying to think what happens next. They meet up.
In the garden.
They meet up with the other group. There's an other group of 5 people that are almost identical to their group of 5 people.
Yes.
And,
just gender swapped.
Yeah.
No, in fact, except the last guy, who's just another just fat, lazy dude.
Yeah. And so it's like this other person that he met for like 2 seconds earlier in the movie that I guess they're friends?
Yeah, they're ex-college friends.
Yeah. And so he tells them where they're going. She hears this and just gives a little like, okay, good luck.
Frickin', I forgot the actor's name. Sherlock Holmes' assistant.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. He's in a few.
I forgot his name.
Yeah, he's in a few good things.
He was also in The Hobbit as the Hobbit.
He was. He was good in that too.
That's gonna annoy me. Michael Buzanem.
I don't know. I don't know actors' names.
You just but
I know shit with actors' names. Anyway, so they get to the front of the pub, but to get there, they realize that there's a giant crowd of zombies in between them and where they have to go, and so they decide to act like zombies, just like move slowly, groan, act all like janky and stuff like that, and just hope it works. And luckily, one of the roommates is an acting student, and so she, teaches them how to act like a zombie. They get to the front of the pub, and there's a bit of a confrontation. They attract the attention of the zombies, and Irish guy...
Martin Freeman. Sorry.
Martin Freeman, is that his name?
Yeah.
The Irish guy gets fed up, and he's like, oh god, we gotta go in there quick, and he smashes a window with a bin. And,
I kind of stand by that being the best thing.
But the thing is...
Considering the scenario.
Yeah, and the main character, Shaun, should have just gone like... He knew there was a back entrance, but none of them were listening to him. And he just couldn't spit it out. Which, honestly, is this guy's problem for most of the movie. Most of the social issues that he ended up having was he just couldn't spit out words.
I mean, if it was a sensible person anyway in this film, they wouldn't have gone to this pub in the first place anyway. No. Second of all, if they were in that position, they would have gone through that window, out the back door.
Right?
Out of a different place.
Yeah. So, they do eventually get into the pub, hole up there, and they do this because Shaun runs off and selflessly distracts all the zombies by going, look at me, and runs away, and everyone else gets inside. And they're holding up there, and they're like, oh, he's dead, and, we don't... If he doesn't come back, we need to think of plans and fortify the place. And then he just shows up. He's like, I made it back. I lost them. I'm fine. And,
shenanigans ensue.
Yeah, they find out that the Winchester that's hung above the bar is actually not only a real gun, but it's also loaded and still functional.
Yep.
And there's this
another thing.
There's a whole sequence where they try to fire the gun and they suck at it so much because like all 5 of them are trying to figure out how to operate it.
Like I don't know if they... I mean, obviously it was intended because that's how it looked, but like every single shot he fired, he hit once. He fired like 16 shots and one of them hit. And this this is a scene that only a British person would believe, because rifles are one of the most accurate types of firearms out there. And I guarantee, at that range, you could pick one up having never handled a firearm before in your life, and you could hit something in the head perfectly. If that was a pistol, fair enough. Like, if someone who's never touched a gun before, if they picked up a pistol and were aiming at someone in a high-stress situation, I can imagine that many misses.
A high-caliber pistol, I'd agree. 22, you could still hit him.
Fair.
But still, but that was my point. That scene annoyed me.
Yeah. And the mother thing. Oof. That was like the one and only
that was
dark point.
Like, his mother gets bitten, and then there's this really, really, like, oddly out-of-place dark scene where the Irish guy is trying to convince him that, we need to kill her because she's going to turn. She's dead anyway. She just hasn't stopped moving.
The right thing.
He's right. And they have this big emotional scene where they have, like, a bit of a Mexican standoff where they're all, like, pointing weapons at each other and... then the mother does die and turn into a zombie, and then he shoots her, and he's like, oh, he has this really, like, sobbing moment of, like, oh, I had to shoot my mother, and all this. It's a really out-of-place scene compared to the rest of the movie. Because even when people have died in this movie so far, it's been played for laughs.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have this jarring emotional moment.
And then another character dies very quickly afterwards.
Yeah, the Irish guy, he gets pulled out a window and they literally rip his stomach open and, like, are pulling his intestines out.
Well, before we start the movie, Alicia was like, yeah, there's one scene that I always just look away from the TV whenever it happens. And I am totally the same. This scene is very visceral.
Yeah. Meanwhile...
So I just didn't look this out. Like...
I just watched it and I didn't...
You're okay with viscera.
Yeah. It really doesn't bother me too much.
Like, I don't know, TV is too good at making things look realistic.
That's the thing, yeah. When the gore gets really, really real. That was one of the...
Oof. I can't do that.
To be fair, I was very recently desensitized to it by watching Invincible. Because...
Yeah, but Invincible's kind of...
It's animated.
Okay, granted I haven't
It's
seen it.
animated, but it's realistically animated, and there is some brutal gore in that. Like, highly detailed gore.
The closest comparison I can get to that is that superhero...
Oh, The Boys?
The Boys. And I was completely fine with everything from The Boys.
Yeah.
Putting C4 on a man's anal cavity was fine. Like, it was grim, but it was also just funny, and it wasn't that. It was just jam everywhere. It wasn't, like, bone or anything.
This was, you're seeing somebody screaming, being pulled into a crowd, and literally being ripped apart alive. And I can see that being disturbing to watch.
Yeah.
I just am old, jaded, and desensitized.
But one little mask popping up on a computer screen, and it's whoa!
Yeah, look, it's a video game. I don't know, for some reason they hit me more. So he gets pulled out, and for some reason he's clearly dead. His girlfriend goes crazy and tries to charge out the door after him. Like,
and
she's
it doesn't
gonna
seem like she even likes him that much.
No, it's clear that, like, the only reason they're together is because he had the hots for this girl. This girl didn't have the hots for him, so when he got rejected, this other girl hooked up with him in college and just basically was his second choice.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a weird...
She was happy with it, but, like, it was kind of sad.
All of the relationships in this movie confused and kind of weirded me out.
You don't actually see her die.
Well, she charged into a crowd of zombies after a corpse.
So did Shaun, though.
True.
Maybe he was blown away.
True. But I think it's heavily implied she's dead.
Yeah, probably.
I mean...
I'd like to think she survived, because I actually didn't mind her character. She was a little bit annoying, but honestly, she was
I did actually like her, yeah. Like, she was one of the most likable characters in the movie, I think.
That's my headcanon, that's what I'm going on.
Yeah. You know who one of the most annoying characters in the movie was?
The guy that got ripped apart.
I didn't mind him too much. I was actually going to say Shaun's girlfriend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's just kind of there for being Shaun's girlfriend. She doesn't really do anything.
Both of the main characters were tepid. Like, they were just milk water.
You like Shaun?
Not really.
Okay.
There's a British character archetype I've noticed, having watched a lot more UK films now and TV shows, and it's the archetype of, like, the passive... the jaded, passive, like, pansy of a man. And Shaun does get better in the later part of the movie, but he's still got this weird, like...
He's definitely the most ballsy of the group.
He is.
Excluding his friend, who's more crazy than ballsy.
Yeah. I didn't mind his... I didn't like his friend at the beginning of the movie, but he grew on me significantly as the movie went on.
It's good.
Yeah,
anyway. I think it's one of those movies where the characters aren't great, but the comedy that the characters make is great.
Oh, perfect example of this. That movie Yesterday, the Beatles one.
Yeah.
The way that main character and his love interest interact, that annoyed me for the exact same reason. Because
he had a lot less character than Shaun did there.
He did. Which is why I actually... I enjoyed Shaun as a character more than him. I didn't just want to call him an idiot the entire movie. But it was the interactions between him and his girlfriend. I'm like, dude, where the fuck are your testicles?
Anyway.
Sorry.
So,
going on. So those two die. The
Yep.
three of them kind of escape into the basement, but best friend has gotten injured.
gets really fucking injured. He gets ripped apart.
Oh yeah,
But he's still alive.
But he's somehow, he's still going. So they get into the basement and they give him the gun and light a cigarette, and they escape, girlfriend and Shaun, and he has a last stand, like fighting off the zombies, right, as they're breaking into the basement. Am I skipping over anything in that scene? I feel like there was something else.
They were going to shoot themselves.
Oh, right,
and then they realized the lift worked.
Yeah. They realized they only had 2 bullets and there were 3 of them. And so they give the gun to the best friend to, hold up. I did like the line that, like, it's like, oh, can we hold them off with that? It's like, well, maybe if they line up. It's particularly funny to me if you know the kind of bullet like a lever action Winchester fires. That's not going to penetrate more than one person.
It's like a pretty small bullet, isn't it?
It's a small bullet and a smaller powder charge. Like it essentially fires almost a pistol bullet. It's not that big.
I mean, it'll kill the guy.
Oh, one person, but it's not going to go through them.
Yeah, no penetrating power.
So I found that funny for a different reason. But so the lift works. There's a big finale for that guy. He has his moment going out, his last stand, as it were. Girlfriend and him escape, and they're running out. And just then, a giant fucking army truck comes down rolling down the street. Guys with guns come out, and they just mow down zombies en masse. And the other girl, college friend who they met up with earlier, had made it to a station and brought the army in to try and rescue them. And, and then fast forward.
It's kind of a short, sharp ending.
Yeah, and then they fast forward like a year, and they're doing documentaries about it. The world has recovered. Him and the girlfriend. Sorry.
That I vaguely remember us having to do some kind of school thing on this at the end. And it was about how people turn horrible events to light-hearted things and make the most out of a bad situation. It's a very British thing again, making the most out of a bad situation.
It's an Anglican thing, I think, in general. Like, it's something that you only really find in stuff like Commonwealth countries, or former Commonwealth countries. So UK, Australia. You see it to some extent in other places.
And you had that Jeremy Kyle episode on the what's the equivalent in America?
Probably. What's his name? Bald guy. Dr. Phil. Yeah.
Yeah. Where a woman's like, oh, he might be a zombie, but I still love him.
Yes. She had a British accent, by the way. She
sleep with him?
She did not have a country accent.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know why. I put on a bumpkin accent because I was thinking of Dr. Phil.
But yeah, and then, so it's a year on, and basically the world has gone back to normal. And they're basically using the zombies as amusements and stuff.
So Takeshi's Castle, but with zombies.
But with zombies, yeah. And that doesn't really exist in the US, so I should probably clarify that...
It doesn't exist in the UK, to be fair.
Yeah, it was a Japanese show that came over to the UK for a few years, and then I'd never made it over here.
Cool.
But it was like a giant,
Charles.
It was a giant, obstacle course game show. Think a less refined version of American Ninja or whatever it's called.
I mean, you got Total Wipeout. No, wait, Total Wipeout's a British thing.
It is.
You have an American equivalent to Total Wipeout, though, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And then he's with the girlfriend, and they all live happily ever after, except all the people that died.
And then he goes out the shed.
Oh, that's right. His best friend is a zombie in the shed, and he's playing video games with him. He's got his best friend is a zombie chained up in the shed. I forgot about that.
It's a nice little ending. They're still together.
Yeah, he's still he's living with the girlfriend in the house only, but he's still got his bro in the shed.
And it does actually make me anxious. I know it's just a comedy. I know it's the end of the film, but it's still it's
yeah, he could bite you.
Yeah, am I that much of a pussy that I'm I know that it's just all fictional and bollocks and finished. But it makes me a little bit anxious each time.
Yeah.
It's still funny.
It is, and it is a funny movie. There's gory bits, those bother you, probably not necessarily the thing for you, but it was entertaining.
You can skip past the gory bit like I did, honestly. It's one gory bit really in the whole film.
Yeah.
I was actually watching I've been on a Shadiversity kick recently, a YouTuber who does like reviews on medieval stuff.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of these ones where it's like he introduces fiction into it and sees how things would work, right?
Yeah.
And he brought up a very good point. If zombies were around in a medieval era, they would be fucking easy to deal with.
Because you're in armor.
Because you're in armor. Like,
yeah.
Is a zombie seed able to get through even chainmail? I doubt it. Like, a fucking guy in plate armor could just walk into a crowd of like 20 zombies, take his fucking time, just like shank him in the fucking head.
This actually, bit of a side tangent and another nerdy moment. At the D&D game that I play on Tuesdays,
yeah.
We ended up fighting these frog people that if you think like the poison frogs, like if you touch their skin you get poisoned, but these ones have different effects. Like if you touch certain ones you'll be like hypnotically entranced by them and they can order you to do stuff. Some of them will like paralyze you, so on and so forth.
Like on the first thing that my mind went to was that you touch a frog and you become drunk.
But they, it was funny because, like, I brought this up to Jesse. I was like, my character is cursed and stuck inside a magical suit of plate armor that he can't take off. So am I immune to this shit? And he's like, oh, yeah, I guess you are.
Well, I mean, if it's like the secretions, then that could easily, well,
no,
because get between the blades.
Think, like, my character is completely encased in, like, medieval power armor, essentially.
Right.
And I can't take
still
it
like
off.
Holes.
Yeah, like there's an eye slot.
Yeah, but even like the plates would have like.
Yeah, you'd have to squeeze the frog leather over my character to get it to go in. Okay, we're getting to like a little bit of a.
I'm just imagining the dude doing the salt thing.
Oh yeah, the guy with the
with a frog. Yeah. Sorry, no one can see that. So
oh my god. Although
But yeah.
Could scream.
Like everyone's always like doomsday prepper. How are we gonna deal with the zombie apocalypse? If you just have a suit of armor, I feel like you're fucking sorted. Unless it's one of the zombies that like don't care about biting, they just like to rip you apart. But even then, ripping someone apart when they're in like proper secure armor,
you know,
it's going to be pretty tough.
The speculation or the post like plot synopsis part of this segment has gone into a weird direction, and I don't know how I didn't think it would just devolve into us talking about zombie apocalypses.
I mean, we haven't talked about zombies much on this podcast, and I feel like they're a pretty extensive topic.
They are a pretty extensive topic, but I hate them. I think they're fucking dumb, and they... Keep in mind, I went to college at, like, the golden era of, like, zombie, like, literature and stuff. Is when there was classic literature with zombies in it. There were a million TV shows with zombies in it. Every video game had zombies in it. Yeah. I burnt out on zombies by the time I was 21.
Oh, I totally agree. But there hasn't been a good zombie production in years, right? And just recently they started. Left 4 Dead just released a new zombie game. I think it's the creators of Left 4 Dead, and obviously that is one of the pinnacles of zombie games, right?
Yeah.
So I believe there's actually going to be a resurgence of zombie games now.
Halo had a zombie game mode that was pretty good. It started as COD.
Sorry.
So it started as a custom game in Halo 2, where you'd have green team would be the zombies, red team would be the humans, and the humans were only allowed to use pistols and shotguns. The zombies were only allowed to use energy swords. Really? The zombies moved fast, but they had no shield, so a single headshot would kill them with the pistol, or a blow to the chest with a shotgun. And so you could, even if they were charging you with the sword, if you were quick enough, you could kill them. And then the humans would hole up, and every time a human got killed, they would have to manually switch to the other team. It was such a popular custom game that they made it an actual game type in subsequent Halo games, in Halo 3 and Halo 4 and Reach and everything.
Yeah, the most difficult thing about putting zombies in a game or a story is the balancing, because I mean, okay, so going back briefly to the medieval thing with zombies, not only did they have armor, they had fucking castles. Zombies can't climb walls. They can't break down massive gates. Like, if you're doing it in a medieval era, you'd have to make the zombies so incredibly powerful that it would be stupid.
I thought of something that I'm going to have to... The thing is, the way that zombies would actually be effective in a medieval setting is by taking over villages, because villages are fairly... They're not very well defended. None of the people there really have armor. Well, I'm saying like because we're talking about castles and knights and things in
Yeah, that's true. I suppose
in a village.
yeah,
They go after the infect the peasantry, and then even if you kill them all off, if a big enough infection happens, then the gentry and the knights and stuff starve because there's no one to work the land and get the food.
Yeah, absolutely. The peasantry. A lot of peasantry wouldn't have armor. A lot of peasantry would have armor, but it would be bad armor.
Yeah, it'd be just like
fully
little pieces of like bits of leather
Yeah,
and
passed down.
Yeah. Maybe some chainmail if they were well off.
That being said, I feel like a peasant from medieval era is about as tough as
That's
a
true.
pretty strong guy these days. I feel like our standards have dropped for physical combat.
Got that farmer strength.
Farmer bod, yeah.
They do like that's because if you think about it, like most workouts, like even people who do like big weightlifting workouts and stuff today and do a lot of build up. Like it's a different kind of like muscle structure that you're building because you're doing like short, intense bursts, but like
wouldn't have stamina.
Yeah, exactly. If you're working on a farm, you're using strength over a long period of time, so you got that endurance. How did we get here from zombie apocalypses? How did we get here from Shaun of the Dead?
Zombies! It's all the zombies, man. Anyway, it is actually gone over now.
Yeah, we have gone over quite a bit, and I do want to save enough time because I want to talk about this thing in segment 3. So,
go for it.
This is going to be the end of segment 2 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you will hear us again momentarily for segment 3. And welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We're on segment 3, our media segment, and I just had something go down the wrong way in my throat right as I did that intro.
Maybe went down the wrong way.
God damn it.
Sorry.
So we're trying out a segment that we did try briefly previously, and it didn't actually... Well, it probably would have been good, but the recording fucked up, and we had to throw out the entire thing.
We cocked it up several times over.
And it just...
By
the end of it, we're just sick of it.
Yeah.
So what this is we're actually going through an article. We had been going through one about... was it Love Actually?
So Shit Actually, it was the article was called.
Yeah, and it was by this very miserable woman who just had no...
Very extremist views on, I don't know, what's the word? Socio-economic progressiveness or something?
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, but this one was an article that was sent to me by a friend of mine that I feel like I needed to... it would be good content for the podcast because it's related to video games.
Indeed.
It is actually from the Wall Street Journal, famously it used to be a good paper. They've kind of followed a lot of news stations in the modern day and just gotten very, very, very political.
Yeah.
And
are they doing it? Have they just gone down that rabbit hole of there's a phrase?
I think it's
like misery makes clicks or something.
They're going for the misery, but it's more than that. They also had that big thing back in 2017 where they started going after YouTubers.
Right.
And
that's not a popular thing.
Yeah, putting out hit pieces on them.
They were so popular that YouTubers go after YouTubers.
It's true, but they were responsible for actually forcing advertisers off of YouTube. So like a lot of people on YouTube weren't able to make it as good of a living as they were previous to that, or they had to seriously moderate their content if they wanted to. None of that has anything to do with this. This article is titled, "Digital Addictions Are Drowning Us in Dopamine. Rising rates of depression and anxiety in wealthy countries like the U.S. may be a result of our brains getting hooked on neurotransmitter associated with pleasure."
Yeah.
For those that don't know, dopamine is the primary chemical in the brain that it makes you feel happy. When you feel happy, it's because dopamine is being released in your brain, and your neurons are picking that up. And
just from that initial statement, what your actually, no, you've read the whole article, so maybe it's not me that should be giving my initial thoughts.
I've only skimmed the article. I know most of their points in this, but I haven't really done a thorough read-through of it. So I know basically what they're arguing in this, but I haven't actually given it a real look-through. But just from that first bit, my thinking is that's somewhat true. Like,
yeah, so we are, the two of us, by all definition, are biased.
Yeah.
I'll say it now. But I like to think we're good judges of character. We can set our own things aside. So it's essentially saying we're getting too much pleasure out of video games, or we should be getting pleasure out of the rest of life.
well, they do go on to talk about video games in the article, but just from the title, they say digital addiction. So they're talking about video games, social media.
Do you think they're including television in that?
Probably not.
I don't think they are.
I don't think they are either.
Because we've spoken about this quite recently, where we said, yeah, there's a lot of people out there who are like, video games are really bad for you. It'll kill your soul.
Yeah, and those people
and then
sit on the
spend,
couch
like,
and
5 hours watching TV every day.
Right, exactly.
And I'm not going to say that one side is right or wrong. I think, if computers weren't a thing in my life, I'm sure I would have got a great deal of things done more.
Yeah.
But at the same time, fighting on both sides, I would not have the friends that I have today. I probably would not be with the girl I'm with, which also made me very happy. And computer games are, and some people will see this as a bad thing, some people say it's a good thing, a form of escapism where if I'm really stressed, if I'm having a really shit day, computer games genuinely, they calm me right down, they make me feel better.
Well, they do, and I think that they're a good outlet for a lot of people. The problem, and I think we'll get into we will actually read the article, but just first thoughts before we get into this to set a baseline for where we are. Video games do provide an escape for a lot of people. I think when I got sent this article, before I even read it, one of my first responses was that, I think it's as a guy, you kind of have that need to go out and do something, accomplish something, and in a world that isn't like, it's not like medieval times. There aren't wars going on. There are wars going on, but they're not like, they're not the wars of previous.
On Fortnite, not.
No, what I mean is they're not like the big epic things of previous eras, and so whereas this like aggression that is just naturally part of being a guy, whereas it might come out in very vile and toxic ways, video games are a good outlet for that. Like, I know what you were saying, like, blowing off stress. Juan and I were talking earlier this week. We were playing Splitgate, or Juan actually messaged me, and Raymond was like, hey, let's play some Splitgate. And it was because he'd had a very stressful week. I'd had a very stressful week so far. And it was like, I just want to, like, turn my brain off and shoot something.
Yeah.
And it's a good, and you feel better after that. You go through, you have, like, a competitive game, and
I feel like someone's going to take that sentence.
Take it in a very bad way.
Because the moment someone says, I just want to relieve stress by shooting something, that doesn't mean Kaiser's wanting to go and hurt anyone.
Yeah, no. And honestly, if anyone who's been to like a shooting range, it's a really relaxing thing to do. Like, you just, go in there, buy a box of ammo, put up some targets, take a few shots, and it's just, it's cathartic. It's relaxing.
It's a bit of fun. It's just an adult game, I guess.
Well, exactly. It's, why do people play, like, football? Why do people play basketball? They do it because it feels good to, do something physical and get better at a skill, even if that skill is digital. All right, let's read what these people say before we judge them any further.
Sorry.
All right, so the article is written by Anna Lembke, Lembke, whatever.
Lemk. Anyway, sorry.
So, starts off, a patient of mine, apparently, is there an about the author in this somewhere?
Assuming they're a psychiatrist.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some kind of a psychiatrist. I actually can't read the whole article. So this is just going to be, but a patient of mine, a bright and thoughtful young man in his early 20s, came to see me for debilitating anxiety and depression. He had dropped out of college and was living with his parents. He was vaguely contemplating suicide. He was also playing video games most of every day and late into the evening. So, right off the bat...
I'm going to say now, this is not because of video games.
No, it's not. This is because this person, they lack purpose in their life. Like,
Well,
I mean,
yeah, okay, if they dropped out of school. I think, this sounds like, believing it, I've heard this story a million fucking times. This sounds like they're very stressed from school. It sounds, I mean, if anything, it sounds like the games were released from that stress, and
yeah.
without the videos, dare I say, maybe something worse would have happened. Maybe they would have just dropped out of college. Maybe they would have done the forever sleep thing.
Yeah, they would have harmed themselves in some way.
I mean, if they're having a really negative time online, I can see why that wouldn't help.
Yeah.
But equally, I feel like it's very easy to avoid those places online.
And I think we've both experienced stuff like this in our lives. If you've, everyone has moments of depression, moments of just where life just seems to be shitting on you, where there's so much stress, and things like this, just the same way that sports, exercise, reading, they're a way for you to just get away from that stress, get away from that the dark, depressed mood for a little bit, and you let your brain recharge a little bit in a way.
Yeah.
But you're right. It depends on the game, though. I doubt CS:GO is like that.
Does she give any other reasons why he might be in a bad mood?
Yeah. There's more to this. So,
okay.
20 years ago, the first thing I would have done for a patient like this was prescribe an antidepressant. Today, I recommended something altogether different: a dopamine fast. I suggested that he abstain from all screens, including video games, for 1 month. Over the course of my career as a psychiatrist, I have seen more and more patients who suffer from depression and anxiety, including otherwise healthy young people with loving families, elite educations, and relative wealth. Their problem isn't trauma, social dislocation, or poverty. It's too much dopamine, a chemical produced in the brain that functions as a neurotransmitter associated with the feelings of pleasure and reward. So, right here, this is why I think that video games are just part of it, but you could say the same thing with social media. The people who are on Instagram just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, the people who are on Twitter, they're getting that dopamine hit.
I agree. I think too much screen time is a bad thing, and that is my hypocritical of me, because believe me, I spend a lot of time on the computer.
Yeah.
And I know it's not good for me, and when it turns out... oof. Voice crack. When you're working a job that involves using a computer, and then your free time you're also spending on the computer, yeah, it is bad.
Yeah.
And I try to take a lot of breaks from the computer, just every hour, just do something else for a minute, if you can.
Exactly. But sorry, go on.
I was going to say, the thing that I really think is a lot worse than just being on digital network at any time, in particular, are mobile phones. I think they angle a lot more towards the social media side, and I think social media is fucking terrible.
Yep.
Generally, I use Discord, where I have a close group of friends that I talk to. Years ago, I kind of disconnected myself from any of these mass media platforms, because honestly, I don't think...
Well, we've talked about this previously. I used to have a Facebook account, and I thought Facebook was stupid even when I got it. I liked it in the beginning because it was just basically people shitposting, and it was small groups of people. It was mostly college students when it first came out. I think you actually had to have a college email for them to give you an account on it. It was college students to begin with, and then they expanded it further and further and further. And in early 2020, when I went to Japan for work, I didn't go log into Facebook at all during that trip. I'd already barely been using Facebook at that point, but I still logged in there and every now and again. But when I got back, I hadn't used it in about a week, and I felt really good, and I just was like, fuck it. I deleted all the links, logged out on all my computers so I couldn't log back in easily, and didn't touch it. And for my mental health, it was one of the best things I've ever done, because every time I logged in there, I just felt like everything I looked at was just pissing me off.
It also, probably the biggest thing that is terrible about phones is the whole FOMO thing, the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
how often have you woken up in the middle of the night and the first thing you've done, just subconsciously, is go over to your bedside table, check if you've got any notifications. It's the middle of the night, no one's messaging you. It's not going to happen. But you're like, oh god, what if someone messaged me and they've been waiting for like hours for me to reply?
Yeah, and there is that, and I think it's what it comes down to. I think is you've basically gone from where evolution doesn't happen that quickly, right? So we've gone within a 50-year-ish period, probably less than that, really, more like 20 or 30 years. We've gone from basically just having people around you who you're interacting with to suddenly you're interacting potentially with hundreds or thousands of people because you're on the internet, you're all connected through social media. A brain that was only designed to deal with like maybe 500 people at most, because that would be your tribe and your village and the neighboring tribes, is now interacting with potentially thousands or millions of people. And it makes it worse with a phone because, like, if I go outside and I'm hanging out with a few people, say I'm hanging out with you and a couple other people, and I say something, and half of you are like, oh, okay, yeah, that's pretty funny, that's pretty good, and the other half of you, oh, just fuck off. Like, 50-50, I've got two people telling me to fuck off, I've got two people telling me, oh, that was pretty cool. Brain's okay to deal with that. Now you say something dumb online, and you've got, like, 5,000 people who are saying that's bullshit and that's stupid, and you've got 5,000, your brain is just overwhelmed because that's the entire world coming after you.
And there's whole new safety measures. Like, if you're talking to someone in a pub, chances are, let's say you offend them, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean that.
Well, because
this is what I meant.
In person, there's always that, at least as a dude, there's always that implicit, like, implication that there could be violence if you push it too far.
Right. But yeah, online, you say something that someone misreads, just twists it on purpose, and instead of saying, actually, I'm not really comfortable with you saying that, or, that's kind of a bit rude, dude.
Yeah. You fire back.
They go straight to, you're hellspawn.
Yeah.
I'm putting that nicely.
Yeah.
They throw some vile stuff back at you, and you don't really have a chance to rebuttal, because they already hate you, they've already made that mind about you. You can't change that. And it's not just one person. Like you said, it's 5,000 people.
Yeah, and you've got, like, stuff flying in from all over the place. I remember this conversation a few years back, and one of the points I was making, so it was an argument that wasn't even an argument. One of my friends had posted I was on Facebook, and this was on, like, 2015, 2014, I want to say. One of my friends had posted an article, and it was regarding, like, a study that had come out about climate change and stuff like that. And I replied underneath it, and because he put it out, very sincerely, like, oh, this is very concerning and whatnot, and it was something about how the world's going to end in 2018. Here we are in 2021, and my reply was kind of tongue-in-cheek, just saying, like, oh yeah, back in the 70s they called it global cooling, then it was global warming, now it's climate change. They just keep changing the name when they're wrong. And my point is that, like, I hate this idea that science is something that's governed by consensus. It's not. The whole idea, like, falsification is as critical to the scientific method as proving something. When you prove something isn't true, it's just as important as when you prove something is true. So when somebody comes out with a new theory like this, what should happen is you should have a bunch of scientists trying to prove it is true, and you should have a bunch of scientists trying to prove it isn't true. And that was the point I was trying to make. But one of his friends, who I didn't know, was somebody he met in the military, jumped on, just was, like, immediately on me. He was talking about, like, he was talking about Fox News, he was talking about all this. I'm like, and I responded to him like, dude, who are you talking to? Because it's clearly not me. Like, I didn't say any of this shit. Like,
right.
Like, I'm an engineer. I had to take, like, courses into the scientific method. Like, I didn't say this in the article, but this is what I'm thinking. Or in the response to him, I was just like, I'm just making a point about science and how it should be conducted.
Right, and
and
took it a bit too far,
he
maybe.
just immediately thought I was some, like, he had this image of the person who would question this article in his head, and he just pasted that image onto me. And in a purely text-based media, like if we were face-to-face, the conversation would have gone like, I would have said that. He would have made a counterpoint. I would have clarified and said, no, I'm not into all that other weird shit. I'm just making these points. And then it would have de-escalated. But online, this guy, and I kept trying to de-escalate it online, but every time I said something, he would just, again, go with one of these weird, like, attacks, like, assuming that I was this archetype that he'd read about on the internet.
Mm.
And you do get that with, I know this article is mostly about video games and stuff, but social media, I think, is also a very big culprit of this. All right, so I want to keep going with this. Do you have any other points on where we were, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Glad I turned the brightness up on my monitor. By the way, for the people who can't see this because I'm not putting the video on, we're both wearing aviators.
Yeah.
Um,
One of them days. You were saying?
Yeah. When we do something we enjoy, like playing video games for my patient, the brain releases a little bit of dopamine and we feel good. But one of the most important discoveries in the field of neuroscience in the past 75 years is that pleasure and pain are processes in the same parts of the brain, and that the brain tries hard to keep them in balance. Whenever it tips in one direction, it will try hard to restore the balance, which neuroscientists called homeostasis, by tipping it in the other. As soon as dopamine is released, the brain adapts to it by reducing or down-regulating the number of dopamine receptors that are stimulated. This causes the brain to level out by tipping to the side of the... So this is fairly basic neuroscience. I remember studying this in college. It's like anything else. It's like, if you take a drug, or if you drink, or if you smoke, you build up a tolerance to whatever is in it. It's the same thing with neurotransmitters. Like, if you're... Sorry. Like, if you're constantly doing some... So, like, people who, like, binge eat chocolate, like, it doesn't have the same effect as somebody who has it, like, once every few weeks, because it's only there for those little bits.
I've been watching a lot of this religious channel on YouTube recently, and the thing that keeps coming to my mind is when they say, you're a slave to, what's the word, pleasures. God.
Pleasures?
Yeah, it's not the right word, but yeah, like...
Indulgence? Maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's kind of, it's a sin to, like, be...
It's gluttony, yeah. Gluttony isn't just overeating, it's just overindulging in general.
Exactly, like, they're saying, that's why they don't like people, they're okay with, but they're not a massive fan of people just having...
Yeah. But, I mean...
I'm trying to think of YouTube-friendly word. Fuck it. Not a massive fan of people just having sex without having children, right?
Yeah. Well, it's
That's
like
the same thing with chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, we've said this before. Vices aren't necessarily bad for you, but you need to moderate them.
Yeah.
Like, you might really like this one type of food, but you don't eat it all the time. You might enjoy watching some spicy stuff on a certain hub site on the internet. But if you do it
on
every
the TMCJ podcast. That's
right.
I'm talking about you, dinosaur episode.
not the tacos. But if you do it every single day, you get hooked because your brain is used to that. Like, okay, dopamine hit. Okay, yeah. Dopamine hit. It's the same thing with like booze or drugs. Like, people who smoke pot or like who drink, it's like, yes, it feels good if you have like drink at the end of the day, calling it quits, and it's like, I've had a good day, have a beer, end of the day. But if you're drinking all day, it has nothing. The same thing with like pot. Like, if you're like, I knew this. I worked with this one girl that every single day after work, she would get to her car and then immediately start smoking pot on her way home. Which, by the way, is illegal. She shouldn't have been driving, but every single day she'd do that. And so should have to have more and more and more of it. And it's the same thing with anything that's going to hit those pleasure receptors in your brain.
Yeah, it's like classic saying, too much of a good thing makes you sick.
Yeah.
Does the article go on any further? I swear we have another...
The article does go on further. Unfortunately, I have to pay $4 to the Wall Street Journal to actually get it to go further.
Oof. To read an article, $4? That's like a whole newspaper. I guess they'd probably give you a whole newspaper with us, but... Jesus.
I just saw something real quick.
Go on.
Fill for me.
Shall I start on the next?
No, not yet.
Okay. Yeah, so, like, the equivalent of what we're doing right now for the podcast is, like, imagine, like, 50 years ago or whatever. The equivalent of this would be if we sent around, like, a comedy newspaper to everyone who subscribed, but for a very minimal price on our part. And not only does it just go to the local village, it's going for the whole fucking world. Like, this is how crazy the last 50 years have been.
Yeah.
Like, the advancements, compared to, like, the medieval era, took hundreds of... Wait, was it 100 years, or was it more than that?
Much more. If you're talking about, like, the entire medieval period, the early and late medieval period, it goes for close to 1,000, actually.
Yeah, and think about the advancements. Don't go wrong with made big advancements, but compared to the advancements from 100 years in this day and age, it's just mad. Have you found what you're looking for?
Yeah. So, I'm messaging the person who sent me the article. They actually have a Wall Street Journal account, so I'm asking if they could just copy and paste it to me.
I see. Okay.
we can start talking about what you wanted to talk about, and then
for the
come
sake
back
of
to
time.
this. Yeah. Because I also don't want just to have, like, dead air on the podcast.
This is an article I found. A lot more lighthearted. Well, I say lighthearted. Some people might say more worrying.
I'd say more worrying, having read the headline. You sent me the headline for it.
So, for the podcast, I was looking for just a fun article to read. Here's the headline. We salute the teen furries taking over this Kennedy High School. Concerned parents say the furries are wearing cat ears, tails, and leashes to school. Alright, first of all, that's fucked up, alright? Particularly the last item in that list. It's teenagers, so okay, teenagers, we all know how teenagers can be.
Yeah.
This would never, ever be allowed in any of the schools I have ever heard of when I was growing up.
Same. They wouldn't even let us bring fucking Pokemon cards to school.
The American high school experience in 2021 is I'm reading from direct from article here. In 2021 is plagued by uncertainty in the face of an ongoing pandemic. Anti-mask dads, TikTok drama, the usual academic hurdles, and furries.
Oh, sorry, this is relevant to the segment we just got off of. TikTok proves that humanity was a mistake.
Oh, see, TikTok's just... It's the latest version of Twitter.
It's so bad.
According to NBC affiliate, I don't know what initials stand for, parents and students alike are concerned about a group of high school students...
Pretty sure it stands for National Broadcast Company. It's an American...
WLWT.
Oh, I have no idea then.
Yeah. Attending school acting like and dressing as cats. So not just dressing up, but they're acting like cats as well. One woman who spoke to the outlet, the grandmother of 2 children who attended the high school, said the trend began last year, but seemed to become more popular when students returned to class. Yeah, whatever. Apparently, from what I understand, this is the grandmother talking, by the way. Apparently, from what I understand,
this is going to be a great
furries.
take. This is going to be a great take.
The grandmother, who asked to remain anonymous, I wonder why, told us, they identify with animals. These people will hiss at you or scratch at you if they don't like something that you're doing. She said it's not a new problem. I was hearing rumblings of this last year, but it got really bad when they went back to school this year, I have 2 grandkids in school, and my grandkids didn't want to go to school anymore. Who can fucking blame them? That's my words, not hers. She said...
Are you going to act like cats? We're going to neuter and spay you. Get out of here.
She said the issue gained attention on social media once people started sharing photos and videos of the feline costumes and behaviour. Started getting videos and messages from kids, and I said, okay, I'm going to post this so parents know what's going on. There was a petition. The students are told they cannot wear hats or Budweiser shirts in school, but they can wear cat ears, cat tails, masks, leashes. It just doesn't make sense.
They can't.
She says.
Well, okay.
What's wrong with particularly Budweiser shirts? Is that like
it's because
a meme that
like
missed?
I did say this earlier. America has a weird relationship with alcohol. So
Right.
the idea of a child wearing a alcohol paraphernalia shirt is, you know, like we got in trouble in college. Like, so the drinking age is 21 over here, and most kids in my dorm were 18 or 20 or 18 or 19 my freshman year. So none of them were legal drinking age to go out to a bar and stuff. In some states they could, you know, drink at home, but they like one of the guys used a giant like Budweiser box to carry his stuff into the dorm, like a big crate, like the 32 pack of beer. And we got a big angry email sent out about one of the residence hall people. So the officers that watched the hall going like, "Hey, this isn't cool. Like, we're not going to be like, we're okay with people being subtle about it, but this is just flying in our face that we have this, you know, the beer box here." I'm like, dude, we're all over 18. Calm the fuck down. Like, and it wasn't even like there was actual beer in the dorm. It was just like he carried his shit in the box. Anyway, sorry, go on.
So I just read like it's one paragraph. Still, this sounds like a small group of nerdy, socially awkward kids. No, I'm sorry. Anyone who's going to school wearing a leash is not a socially awkward kid.
No.
Who are going through a phase. The Venn diagram between these kids and the kids who Naruto run through the hallways. That's word for word. The Venn diagram between these kids and the kids who Naruto run through the hallways is, I would guess, basically a circle. And they are probably harmless.
But no, they're fucking ninjas. They're not harmless. They can fucking kill you.
In this article, they said these kids were not just like hissing and scratching; they were actually also biting people. That's not harmless to me.
No, that's not harmless. Why are these kids okay? You know, it's COVID days, baby.
I mean, they're not okay, clearly. There's always been some teen craze that people inevitably blow out of proportion. Remember Vampire Kids post-Twilight? I am sorry, but no, that was never a thing. Like, maybe, like, dressing up as a vampire is basically just a brooding... That's just a emo.
Yeah, it's an emo kid by a different name.
Or when 90s teens had a thing for pacifiers. What, like, the prog rock kind of... No,
that was because
pacifiers.
So this person is a fucking idiot. The reason that thing came up with the pacifiers is because people would put drugs. They would lace the pacifier with drugs, like ecstasy and stuff, and they would have the pacifier in their mouth and it became like
the safety pins. I don't know.
It would become like a weird style thing. Like it's like anything else. It starts off like really hardcore, and then normal people adapt it, and then it becomes very tepid. But that's where that came from. It was like it was a rave and drug thing.
So the next part. Please let these weirdos do their thing. I don't know who the fuck is saying this, by the way. Unless they're actually harming their classmates, I can see no. They're biting them.
Yeah, harm
during a pandemic. You fucking idiot. Sorry. And maybe let the kids wear hats in class too. Who cares?
Maybe they're zombies. Like those other kids are going to catch furry because they've been bitten.
They finish this line with, "Dress codes are mostly nonsensical anyway."
Bullshit.
Dress codes are not nonsensical.
They
I'm
aren't.
sorry. There. And what follows this paragraph is a YouTube video which I'm not going to click on. entitled "On All Levels Except Physical, I Am a Wolf," and it's a fucking dude, just his fucking face.
It's just gonna be him howling.
Yeah, I am understood. That's it for this article. Sadly.
All right, this goes on to like a larger topic, one that I am annoyed by. I'm convinced now. I do fully plan in the course of my life to settle down, have a family, eventually have kids. I don't want them going to public school after all the shit that I see going on now. Like,
Yeah.
I thought public school was bad when I was there. Like, public school is like, you go there and it's typically a shitty education, but the honors classes were kind of good most of the time. And a couple teachers were good, a couple didn't give a fuck. But, like, I went through and but the thing is,
this is not the kid's fault. I want to say this right now. This is not the kid's fault.
This is the fault of the adults that aren't putting their fucking foot down.
This is like when you watch one of these programs on TV where like dogs behaving badly, and it's never the dog's fault, right?
No, it's because
it's the fucking owner being a moron.
All right, real talk.
The parents are wrong.
Real talk.
In this case,
like,
and the class.
Yeah, anything young, be it a child, be it a pet, whatever, they need discipline.
Yeah.
Like, if they have no discipline in their lives, they're going to grow up to be fucking just useless, essentially.
And that's what school is for.
Yeah. School and parenting. The parents should be, like, reinforcing this at home. Like,
yeah.
If I
Who
got...
the fuck lets their kid go to school with a leash around their neck?
I literally, like, if I acted like a dick in school, like, if a teacher acted like a dick, my parents had my back. But if I was the one acting a fool, no, my parents were on my ass. If I brought home a grade that was like, I brought home a grade that was a C one time, which is still passing the class, and I had a long talk with my parents. Like, they were not happy. And that set me up for success for the rest of my... Because I took that attitude on because that discipline was put into my mind at a young age.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. People think that if you're getting told off, then your parents are bad for telling you off.
There's a difference between discipline and abuse. And that's a line that I feel like a lot of people do not get. It's like, the abuse is, you're just, for no fucking reason, you're laying hands on your kid. Discipline is you teaching them how to have, like, a good, structured life. Like, you gotta, make sure you eat properly. Make sure, you get out and get some sunshine. Make sure that you're doing your work. Make sure that you're respecting the people around you. Like, that's a good thing to have in your life. And you gotta realize, like, people are not born good. They're born fucking animals.
Yeah, it's like the whole, the car scenario. Like, if your kids are messing around on the street in the middle of the road, they're going to be in for fucking hell from me.
Yeah.
Because anything that I do is never going to be as worse as them getting hit by a car, and if they never do it again, it's worth it.
Yeah. Now, I remember, like, so my parents were very, very hands-off. It was mostly, talking. I can only remember one time in my entire time growing up that I got hit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even my dad, it was my mother. My dad never, like, touched me. He was good about that. Like, he'd get angry if I did something really fucked up, but he would, he'd never hit me. There was one time, and I can't even remember what I did, but it was something really messed up. I said something to my mother that was just vile. And I was like maybe 6, 7 years old, and she slapped me across the face. And I still remember this because, like, immediately after she did that, she, like got down on her knees and, like, hugged me and started crying because she, like, was so mad that she had, hit me at herself. And I remember that because that like, and it ingrained itself in my head that, like, wow, I was a really bad person in that moment. Like, that was something really fucked up that I just did. And that is important. It's important to a child's development to understand, like, because there are things that human beings don't just naturally progress into adults. They need to, like, be built up into adults.
It's like, okay, when I was very young, and me and my brother, if we did something stupid, we'd quite often get like smack bottom.
Yeah. Just
That was, like,
something
the
light to
standard
go like, okay, you fucked up.
And whether it was that or it was like, right, sit on the stairs for an hour, that's a lot worse in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because for a little kid, an hour sitting on a staircase is torture.
At that point,
and it's fair enough because I never fucking did that again. That mistake. But like, say I got smacked on the ass, and then I would feel like shit.
yeah.
Not because like it hurts for like 5 minutes, then you just get over it.
Yeah.
But you really feel inside, like, sick to your stomach that you know you've done something so bad.
You've done something wrong, and
your parents do this.
The thing that always got to me was like, you know that you've disappointed your parents. That was always something that like got to me too.
As a child, that's a big thing.
It is, because as a child, your parents are gods. Like, right? They're the people who know everything, and they're the ones who are, they're protecting you and everything. It's a very, like, it's something that I feel like it is neglected a lot. And so, yes, I agree, part of this is, like, the school's responsibility. They should be putting their foots down. But the parents should be doing the same thing. Like, the parents of the furries that are going in there wearing all this, let's call it what it is, kink gear.
The parents shouldn't be letting their children leave the house in it.
No.
The teachers shouldn't be letting their children into the school with it.
Yeah, I don't care about this, like, the whole, like, be yourself and whatever. You be yourself with your friends. When you go into school, that's your job as a kid.
Yeah, if you've got a uniform, you fucking wear it.
Yeah, you dress like a fucking professional.
Mm.
Yeah, and it sounds harsh, but what I think has become very clear, and it's something that used to be very common knowledge, but what's become very clear, having gone in the opposite direction in a lot of places, is that it's healthy for the kids to actually have structure and responsibility and some level of discipline in their lives as they're growing up.
Yeah.
It's just,
It's vital, I think.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what the generation after, because it's kind of the generation after me that I think I got pretty close to the line, to be fair, where I'll be very interested in what adults are going to be like in 2030, because I think it's going to be a complete change. Like,
It really is.
From 20 years, like less than that, from
I'm
a
gonna.
few years ago.
I'm dreading, like, so I'm already at the stage at my work where I run a department, and I'm hiring someone. I'm hiring someone around your age, actually. And I just dread the day that down the road I'm going to have to hire somebody in that next generation down.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be...
And there's always exceptions. We're not
There
saying
are,
that everyone born after a certain date is a terrible person.
No, and I don't really like that grouping into, like, millennial, Gen Z, and all that other stuff. I feel like that's very reductive. Like, people are individuals.
Yeah. But purely a view on where the world as a general is going. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is what, people 20 years older than us were thinking.
It's
and they're
possible.
seeing us now. It's like the most sought after job for people leaving school right now is being a YouTuber.
They're YouTuber, influencer, podcaster.
Like, I mean, we do this as a job. We do this as
Yeah, we do this
enjoy.
as a hobby. But yeah, because it's something fun to do.
But yeah, I mean, when you were in school, what did everyone want to do? I mean, granted, you went to an engineering college, but before that.
So when I was in high school, there was a whole range of different things people wanted to do. I know when I was in high school, I actually wanted to get into architecture, actually. And then as I went on further, I was like, I'd like to actually get into doing something with computers. And so I actually went to college, and my first major was in game design and programming. Which is how I met like a bunch of my friends now who are all software engineers. But eventually I realized that it was something I had fun with, but it wasn't really something I wanted to do professionally, so I switched over to engineering, like biomedical engineering, and I started learning more about prosthetics and mechanical engineering and stuff like that. And I found I found that to be a much more fulfilling job.
Yeah.
prospect.
I don't know, when I was pretty young, I know like the most sought after job over here was to go and be a soldier.
That's most of my family that lives out in the Midwest. Like, I have a ton of family. My cousin was in the Navy. My other cousin was in the National Guard. My grandfather was in the Marines. I've got...
Yeah.
I know I'm forgetting someone, and then hopefully none of them are
I'm just
listening to this.
I'm sure the next generation, unless the military do some. I mean, to be fair, they do offer some very good
They do.
bonuses for people to go into it, but
the problem is they're turning into like a corporation where they're worried about people's there's feelings and everything like that. And it's like, pay attention to somebody's mental health, but you're training a soldier. You're training somebody to actually do.
But they have to these days because they would never be able to
get anyone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway,
do you remember that like a few weeks back on the podcast we talked about that ad from the U.S. Army?
Yeah.
And then I watched a comparison video. It's like recruiting ad for the U.S. Army, recruiting ad for the Chinese Army, recruiting ad for the Russian Army, and the top the top comment under the video is like, "Man, when I watch the Russian ad, I want to join the Russian Army. When I watch the Chinese ad, I want to join the Chinese Army. When I watch the American ad, I want to join either the Russian or the Chinese Army."
Yeah, but all the opinions that we gave, all the opinions of the other YouTubers that I had heard, they were all of people who had either... They weren't of the targeted audience for those videos.
No, that is a good point.
So it doesn't really matter what we think.
No, because we're already on the other side of the debate.
Yeah. Or, ex-military people, they know what war is like, and they know that's not like what it is, so... Yeah, it's disingenuous, but I guess it gets people to join.
So we talked about this in last week's podcast a little bit, but I think it's relevant here as well. The whole fact that the Afghan army folded pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
And the reason behind that is a third of the army... The army had a 1/3 attrition rate per year, so most of the people in there were fairly raw. They weren't well-trained soldiers. And... that's what happens when you have a strong, disciplined, hardcore fighting force like the Taliban that comes in with only 50,000 people and 300,000 poorly trained, feckless people who aren't really going to put up much of a fight. They fold in a second. And that's one of the most worrying things about the fact that militaries are starting to go down this road is, it doesn't matter if you have 1 million soldiers. If it's 1 million weaklings, they'll lose to 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Period.
The moment that America goes bye-bye.
And I'm worried. That's my worry. Most of the West in general, most of Europe has a non-existent army, except ironically for France.
Yeah, they've got that Foreign Legion.
Yeah. Anyway, we're kind of waffling on into other topics at this point.
Yeah.
I did find out that
45 minutes in.
I am going to get access to that full Wall Street Journal article, so we might do a bonus little segment to finish off reading through the article and give more thoughts when I get that. But for the time being, I think this is where we're going to end. Any final thoughts before I close this out?
Saul's very sleek.
Okay.
I came to my end.
God damn
All
it.
that's in my head now.
All right, well, this is going to be the end of episode 57 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you'll hear us again next week.
Not the furries.